Hello everyone. This is the first video on this channel where I'm talking about how to do things practically in a realistic approach and quality-wise when it comes to IT optimization in the companies. And today we will be looking into the real IT spend. So why real IT spend and not the IT budget? Because everyone are doing some kind of budgets. You probably also have IT budget in place. Well, the difference is that the budget is something that you think that you will be spending, while the real IT spend is what actually is going out of your accounts. So what is showing up in accounts payable, and then you categorize it and make it visible for everyone that needs to use it. So why is it so important to underline it? First, how much of your IT spend is done outside of your budget? Can you answer that question? Or how many times you have encountered that something was not planned in the budget? And not because there was a CIO coming in with an exception, but the spend was crawling and crawling and crawling. And then at the end of the year, it's actually a lot more. And the last one is how many different vendors, resellers, manufacturers nowadays you are actually using. A bigger company like a corporation usually will be having between 500 to 2,000 systems and several thousand software products, not to mention hundreds of different kinds of hardware related to IT. And real IT spend approach discipline actually helps you to figure out and get the insight so you can do some actions regarding your IT spend. Well, the next topic is, but you have it all in ERP. Yes and no. Yes, because to some extent it is out there. But do you have all the relations between all the Microsoft, IBM, SAP resellers that you have and might be using? Do you have control of every managing director out there, every director who has possibility to spend money, who is using credit cards? And also, does your finance department have a knowledge about what IT services you have, products, technologies, and stuff like that? Why is it so important? Because finance people are not IT people. So even if they will be categorizing costs, of course, later on there might be some approvals going on, but still it might not be well connected. So what is the value behind the IT spend analysis? First and foremost, it brings the visibility. Visibility to all the stakeholders, the decision makers, the C-level, which is very important because who will have the time, who has the knowledge to actually go around all the thousands of transactions that you are doing on that level. This visibility will give you then the potential for discussions about investments, about optimization of the IT itself, standardization or consolidation activities. The second part is transparency. Nothing works better than actually showing what is the true spend, true IT spend in your organization and who is responsible for that. If some categories are going down or some categories going up. The third part is the insight. Once you have this information, you have the IT spend analyzed, categorized, you can actually start doing some actions based on that. For example, renegotiate some agreements, look into some areas to reduce the spend or maybe optimize it, drive the change in the organization itself. How to utilize the outcome of the IT spend analysis. So let's take a look what we can get actually out of that. What is the value? So first and foremost, what do you get is the negotiation leverage. Imagine that you have the insight into what actually you are spending your money on with the connection to all the vendors, the size of it, and what you are going to do. Then you can use it during your negotiations with your OM providers like Microsoft, or with your resellers, saying that, for example, that you have options to choose from. The second one is controlling the shadow IT and the rogue spend itself. It is not uncommon that in big organizations there are people who have the spending or the approvals to do some spending. They are using credit cards. Of course, the business is actually looking to be fast, right? So they not always want to wait for IT themselves. So this is also the way to actually capture if something is happening without the IT's knowledge. And why is it so important? Because you can utilize as a company the size, the scale that you are doing. That's the 101 of the negotiations part. But also you can figure out things that, I don't know, a new SaaS is showing up, or what risks are showing up because this software or this hardware has not been evaluated. And sometimes the stability is valued higher than the flexibility of what is happening. The third part is the budget. If you are doing IT spend analysis on a regular basis, then the budget part is a lot simpler, a lot faster, because you can deliver up-to-date data to respective stakeholders and also decide in more educated manner what to do. So it is quite common that right now we want to always reduce the cost, but there are areas that are not worth it, or maybe it is not possible. So why put a pressure there? Let's focus on the areas that, for example, are driving the cost. Can we do something there? The budget control. And in the budget control, we have in mind that, of course, as we progress throughout the year, then we are spending money, the invoices are approved and things like that. However, we are able to actually track the trend or the spend tempo in also including all these things that were not part of the budget initially or were hidden somewhat. However, they are IT spend itself. The next point is educated decision making. Once you have the insight of what is happening and when, that's what I have also mentioned a little bit before, you actually get a powerful tool to make educated decisions about what you want to do. You eliminate things like I think that, or I believe that we are spending too much on data centers. But is it the truth? You can actually pretty easily look at it and check. Next point is actually simplifying the complexity. It is very hard to ensure that different stakeholders are talking in the same language. If you look at the C-level, the director level, the strategic level of the organization, you want to have data at hand. You want to have overview because you are making decisions about the whole company, while managers or team leads or specialists, they are thinking more in the operational way. So they will be saying, okay, so we have spent X amount of money on technology, which is cybersecurity something, and then sending mails and analyzing network traffic. But for the decision maker, it is important, okay, so is it CapEx, is it OpEx? Is it part of computing, or maybe it's part of tools that we are implementing? So you also know where is the cost base for that. Next point is very important if you want to keep your organization optimized. It's consolidation, standardization, and optimization. So CSO. This insight actually enables you again to make educated decisions about the direction. Sometimes the ideas about this area is too expensive has nothing to do with the reality itself, because not always it actually is the truth. The beliefs are not the facts. Vendor management. And in vendor management, well, the data about the size of your engagement or to whom you are dependent to, what is the the percentage of dependency compared to other vendors. These will bring you a valuable insight to, for example, prioritize which relations needs to be managed or which relations are actually now less important or more important. Next point is IT asset management. And well, of course, in ideal world, we should be managing everything, but the world is not ideal. And usually you have limited resources. Not always you have the competencies at hand or the insight to actually make decisions what to prioritize. It's quite easy to say, okay, let's take the biggest contracts or uh, or manage everything. But that's not the truth. Actually, what I'm recommending right now to companies that I cooperate with is that you should first start with IT spend analysis, see where actually you are spending money, and then decide what you want to manage. So this is a very, very important step into actually setting up IT asset management in relation to size, the scale, and what you want to manage in your company, because you don't have to manage everything. Benchmarking compared to your peers, because if you will be talking in the same language, and this actually we will touch upon later on, talking about the categorization, the TBM, you will be able to benchmark to other companies on the market to see whether your IT spend is higher, lower, the same. Maybe some of your categories or their categories are actually different, and then you can look into it further, figuring out why is it happening like that. Is it on your side that you are doing something great, or maybe on their side they are doing something good, and then you can use it to improve your environment. Then what we can also add as a value is adding more context. When you are starting to cross-check this data, add more context, like risk scoring or percentage of the pie that the given supplier has, adding a vendor scoring. You can start to see different perspectives of the data that you have. What is also interesting is that you can make a balance of trade. So if you are offering your services to companies from whom you are buying as well, you can actually check how much they are paying you, how much you are paying them. This is a very useful information in terms of relations or maybe also negotiations. And really the last one is leads for business. Relating to the earlier point, if you are also selling your services to some companies, then it might be a good idea to try or provide your sales team information that, hey, we are doing business with them, we are actually buying some products from them, maybe our service is also interesting for them and it will be an opening for discussion. So, which organizations will benefit the most out of this exercise? First and foremost, those with multiple entry points. And what I mean here is that you have multiple legal entities, you have multiple approvers or people who can actually do the spending. They are using different credit cards and stuff like that. Why is it then so important for you to do the IT spend analysis? Let's give an example. You are an international company, you have multiple legal entities, you are headquartered in Europe or in US, and then you are opening up a new company in Asia. Now, if you try to enforce the IT standards invented in US or in Europe, it might be that this legal entity is not profitable at all. So what will happen? Because the business guy will want to be successful, right? So to his or her boss, he will be very encouraged, and they will be They want to show the success. So they might be actually going around the procedures or trying to figure out a way to buy something cheaper, buy something locally, maybe buy something different, because these pesky IT guys, they do not understand that here, for example, I cannot spend 1,000 on a desktop because for that amount of money I can then hire 10 people a month, right? Then the second one is the companies with weak IT asset management discipline in place. ITAM works like a controlling discipline about the spend on software, on hardware. You can expand it further for mobile or any other assets in IT that you have. However, if you do not have a strong discipline there, you do not have experience in working with that, then probably you are losing a lot of money. Or at least you are not spending it correctly. You might not have negotiated correctly the agreements. So there is just easy money out there not being utilized for your benefit. If you have ITAM in place, then the IT spend analysis goes hand in hand because it helps to capture what ITAM couldn't or has an issue to capture. Not to mention that also it brings a lot of insight useful for negotiations or how to transform your IT landscape. The next one is any company that has IT spend counted in millions. Usually I use the 50 million cap as a minimum, because this gives you enough complexity or enough room for things to fall between chairs that you can find a very, very profitable savings, and you can do a lot to optimize the environment, optimize what you have, the contracts, the assets, the IT landscape, IT organization itself. Nevertheless, do not stick too much to, this 50 million. It can be even for 30 or 40 million organizations that have enough complexity, or maybe they do not have enough control to manage the IT spend. Nevertheless, anything above, if you're spending 100, 200, 300 million dollars a year on IT, then probably there is a good chance that there is a place or there is a space to improve using IT spend analysis. The next group of the companies are those with multiple ERPs. And as we mentioned in the very beginning, okay, everything is in the ERP. Yes, but then if you have multiple ERPs, you need to build some kind of an interface that actually gets all the data and shows it in a standard way to the stakeholders like CFO, CIO, or COO, as getting the data from different ERPs separately. You might have different standards, you might have different ways of showing it because the financial teams, they were working differently and stuff like that. If you are lacking visibility on the C-level, then IT spend analysis is also something that will help you, because it will enable you to show in a simple way a very complex topics. If you will be showing the trends, you will be showing categories of IT spend, and not only dropping the names of the products or the vendors or the manufacturers, then you will have an easier life talking with your C-level suits about what we can do and how we can do it. Who had not had an encounter where, for example, you were waiting 3 months for a meeting with a CIO, which was 30 minutes and then cut by 10 minutes because he was late from the other meeting or something like that. And then the CIO says, okay, so give me how much it has changed year to year, our computing spend, for example. And there is like, oh, we can get that data. Yeah, sure. So let's take it on another meeting and I will take the decision there. And now you are just losing time, right? Because The next meeting can be in a month or something. It's not usual that you will have day-to-day encounters. A very interesting part of the companies that will have a huge benefit from IT spend analysis are those doing the mergers and acquisitions, because that's where you have the unknown. You do not have your own standards applied in another company. You basically work on promises. Of course, during the due diligence, you are checking a lot of things, but usually they are more focused on financials and books, not so much on the IT itself. I have seen a lot of times and heard a lot of times situations where the other company, especially these companies which are being acquired by, they tend to say, yes, everything is under control. We have the list of all contracts. We have all the assets in place. But then when you get a look into that, usually it's a mess, or maybe it's in Excel, maybe it's not connected. But even if that's not happening, then IT spend analysis helps you to prioritize correctly. M&A is a very fast and very bloody process, I would say. People are being fired, people are living by themselves because they do not see themselves in the future organization, or they are scared and stuff like that. Not everyone wants to share the knowledge. And all these things, they actually make it very, very hard to do this correctly. And the time is flying. Usually within 6 months or 1 year, a lot of people will be gone or they will have different responsibilities. So that's where it helps. So what is the product here? What actually we are building? Because I've been talking about IT spend analysis, IT spend analysis. So in the end, what do you get? And what do you get is a data set with all the transactions and related purchase confirmations, preferably at least an information about it. And a special focus there is for some of the attributes, so it makes sense for you, so you can actually dive in and analyze what's out there. And let's get through them. The first one would be the currency itself, amount in currency. Pretty simple. We need to use a single one, preferably something that is used in the budget as well. It will make our life easier to communicate with the others. Then the cost center. So we know where the cost has been assigned or to whom it has been assigned. The description. So what has been purchased? What is behind the line item, name of the product, the description from the invoice, stuff like that. Document ID. So what is the ID of the invoice or the receipt, the object in the system itself. So by the end, you are able to bring the file in, and look at it. Look and read all the stuff. The line item ID. So you can figure out, okay, on some of the invoices, you might find multiple products. And then you need to know, okay, which line I'm referring to with this money, with this description, with this product that I will be categorizing. OM, so this is original equipment manufacturer. Examples could be IBM, Microsoft, Oracle. They have plenty of resellers, and it is very important that you eventually know, okay, who is at the end of this path. So you know who is the manufacturer of what you are buying. The next one is the supplier. So from whom you have bought it, as mentioned. Which company sold it to you? Was it directly Microsoft? Or maybe that was some Acme company somewhere in France. Next one is TBM cost pool. I'm referring here to TBM. However, it can be any kind of categorization that makes sense for you. TBM has some advantages. For example, it's a widely used standard. Many companies use it, and a lot of solutions are based on them. These will help you to later on introduce technology business management or IT financial management disciplines in your company and further use the value or talk even with the other companies on the market. The same goes for the TBM towers and TBM sub-towers. These are basically another levels of categorization that you are using. And last but not least, the transaction date. So you can, of course, do the analysis of when something was happening, like checking year to date, how much you have spent or what was the change in your spend. Then the next question is, if we have the product, you will get the data set of your IT spend. How actually to do this? Because it's easier said than done, right? So you have two options, basically. One is to do this yourself. You create a team, you make a task, and you start analyzing the transactions, the invoices going out of your accounts payable, which are related to IT. However, it can be a huge task. There are also companies who can help with that. That's why the second option is actually you use a support from third party that is doing everything or portion for you. So what you will be needing, what data resources, tools, and other things that are needed to make it happen. First and foremost, we will need IT spend. So what is needed? One, spend from all ERPs. And by all, I mean really, really all. Not the main one, but everything. However, it might not be always easy, so that's why you need to know what are the IDs of the ERPs, what are the names. If you have multiple, then also who are the IT owners, business owners, SMEs, also on the finance side, subject matter experts who can help you and provide the data, how you are getting the data from it. Is it CSV exports, Power BI, database, some kind of integration, whatever. And what is the coverage of legal entities by each system. So you can also control whether you have covered all the legal entities that are part of your company. Then the second part is the mapping. And what mapping, you may ask? Mapping between the suppliers, vendors, OEMs, and resellers. And why is it so important? Because if you cannot track back the products that you have purchased, the services that you have purchased back to the parent company, to original manufacturer, well, you are losing a lot of possibilities because you won't be able to see, okay, how much actually we spent with Microsoft. Maybe it makes more sense to start negotiating directly with them instead of buying through resellers, or how much of it is distributed, how much we could reduce the supplier pool that we have, and stuff like that. So you need to have this mapping. Nevertheless, this is quite problematic to build alone, because, well, you need a certain exposure to the market, but we'll get to that later on. Some kind of categorization. I have mentioned TBM, which is a standard, and of course it's a lot easier to use the standards. However, to make your life easier, you can also start with something more simple, like maintenance, investments, people, or something like that. Something that is enough for your level of maturity, but already gives you insight that, okay, we need this part to maintain our environment, to run the business. And this part is actually driving something new for us, new capabilities, new revenue that will come with it, and stuff like that. The fourth one, you need to gather the team before the adventure. Why? It will not be small effort. Anyone working with big companies or working with accounting knows that there will be plenty of these transactions going out. Something you can cut off, something not. You will need to talk with the ERP owners, you will need to talk with the directors, managers, the business owners, service owners to improve the model along the way. That's why the three focus parts will be someone needs to coordinate all these activities. It might be you, it might be someone from your team. The second one, you will need subject matter expert or experts from the finance department, unless you are a finance department. Why is it important? Because you need to respect also the accounting standards. So it actually brings value altogether. It's not only an IT part that we are doing, but it's actually connected with finance. So it also connects later on to how the business is driven. And the third one, if you are sitting in finance, then you are in need of subject matter experts from IT departments. These are the people who are able to explain what are we spending the money on. Because just to give you an example, AWS has around 2,000-3,000 SKUs, so different products that you can purchase. If you will see something, one of the names on the invoice, I can pretty much guarantee you that the accountant will have no clue what it is. But the respective person from IT can help you to figure it out. The fifth one is a go-to tool. So how you are going, or in what tool you are going to build this spend analysis. Of course, Excel is something that will help you along the way. However, it could be worthwhile to figure out, okay, maybe we have Power BI, Tableau, or whatever other tool that helps you to visualize the data, because eventually it must be easy to access for different levels in the organization and easy to drill down. So if I want to put another filter, it's not, a 1 week task, but actually I'm just clicking and I get the data back. And probably the most important part, you need to have the mandate. Of course, it is a lot easier if the initiative is coming from the top, because it is coming with the mandate then. But if it's bottom up, you need to ensure that you have some kind of a sponsor, preferably CFO, CIO, COO, who will open you the gates. Because usually if you're starting to meddle with money, with the budgets, with how the spend is going, then it can be problematic for some people. So you need to have proper support along the way. What are the challenges and mitigations to them? So, first challenge will be the amount of data. There will be hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of transactions going out from the accounts payable. Of course, one of the mitigations is to carve out some of the data sets. There probably the procurement team or the business or accounting vendor management They can tell you that, okay, these guys, all of these suppliers, whatever, these are the business ones. You won't find IT spend there. Awesome. Then we carve it out. And the second approach is actually using a third-party tool. So you basically give it to third party or process it from a tool which is designed to figure out what is coming, what is the IT spend, what are the services, the products, the vendors, OEMs, and stuff like that. And you will get the output based on your spending. Of course, the second option is a lot faster. Nevertheless, you need to pay to someone, and it's not your people. The next challenge is the scale of the organization itself. If you have multiple the business centers, cost centers, budgets, services, legal entities, well, a lot of people is engaged, and the scale basically means that you might find someone that is not happy that you are doing it. Someone will not have time, and stuff like that. And there are two mitigations to that. One, identify the functions, roles, or positions that will enable you to work with the escalation paths, basically. Who is accountable for a given cost center, or who is responsible for a given service? These will reduce the amount of people you need to discuss with, because if they have a mandate to decide, then they are the decision makers. Of course, you cannot forget about the champions or the network hubs, as I call them. So people who might not be on high positions, but they can. However, they have a lot of influence, or a lot of people are listening to them in the organization. These can be your allies. The second mitigation is actually figuring this out on the C-level. So you get the support directly from the CIO or his team, and this will send a message, or even you can ask to get this communication out. This will send the message to the organization that yes, it is coming from the top. This is a little bit related to the mandate that we have discussed earlier. The next challenge is making it business as usual. You can do this one time, but the big challenge is actually to do this continuously. First mitigation is actually, when you are defining this project to do the IT spend analysis, include it as one of the points to make it business as usual, to make it a standard process, because it will mean that someone along the way will have to spend either the time or money to upkeep it. So it needs to be also defined what is the value of doing that and how often it should be done, stuff like that. The next mitigation is actually documenting the effort, the cost, and the outcome itself. So how much time it was needed to do it, how much it has costed, and what we got out of it. So in the future, if someone is not happy to make it a repeatable thing, this might be something that will give them food for thoughts. Next challenge that we have is mapping of OEMs, suppliers, vendors, and where the challenge lies. It is not so easy if you are just in one organization to figure out if Acme company is actually reselling only Microsoft products, but maybe also IBM and something like that. So if you are not implementing some AI or statistical analysis and data mining tools, whatever, to get this data and make these connections, you will have tons of manual work to do, and you may not always capture everything. That's the danger, that's the risk of doing this internally. That's why you can use a third-party tool or service. Because if someone is doing this all the time with multiple clients, multiple spend, they will have better data. and they will have it more complete. They will have methodology to do it. So they will also be able to help you out with the spend that they have never met before. The next challenge is multiple input channels. So if you have multiple ERPs, you need to work with multiple people. The only litigation is documentation, documentation, documentation. So you are not surprised by where it is coming from, how do we process it, how do we work with it, what is the escalation path and stuff like that. The more input channels you have, the more or the higher quality of documentation you should have. Next challenge is everyone believes we are in full control. It is not a surprising one because in a lot of cases, not everyone will be happy that someone tries to challenge the status quo. Everything works fine, right? So why you want to look into how the spend looks, whether it is fully controlled or not? Because then the personal agendas also work in that. Imagine that you are a director of a division in IT, and then it is said that, well, actually you are spending a lot more than what you are saying. Or you need to say to your business team or business division that, guys, actually we were not charging you correctly in previous years. These are not easy discussions, and most of the people tries to avoid them. And the last one, the most simple, you could say, is this usually means, at least in the beginning, more work. And people don't like that. So how you can deal with that, what you can do to mitigate it. Simply put, conduct proof of value. Make it on smaller parts, something that you think that, yes, it doesn't add up. Like it's a polygonal that's secret that this area is actually not looking like it looks in the reports, or this is not comprehensively managed. So you can do this on a small portion of data and show to the stakeholders or to those who are against the approach that, look guys, that's what we are capturing, that's what you will get. How difficult it is to do it. From my perspective and experience, if you want to do it solely using people, no systems, no third parties, then it is quite a journey. It will be not tens, but hundreds of hours involved, a lot of stakeholder management, actually going through the data. There are, or maybe there are some magic bullets, but I will come to that later on. But there is no easy way around it, doing this internally. However, the value is tremendous. In a lot of cases, IT is treated as a cost, but nowadays this is rather an investment. Of course, you need to spend money on something that, because we are just running the business, but also you are now running the revenue using IT. So this helps you to drive the discussions into more, where should we invest with IT instead of how we should reduce the cost in IT because it's driving our business down. If you will start simply, so do the proof of value, capture the cost, make some simple categorizations, that will be easier. You can also skip it by hiring third parties. Here, what I can mention is either you can get the consulting companies. There are 3 right now that are heavily connected to TBM, and they also can help you with that. That's Deloitte, Accenture, and Mareville Consulting Group. However, without going deep dive here, I will tell you about it in some other video. You should look into the CXO Nexus. You will also get the link in the description. because this is the tool which uses all of your spend from the ERP. They process it. They have a great AI engine, and they will just give you an overview of your IT spend already categorized in TBM taxonomy. And they can do this like month to month for you, which is a great one. So this is one of the ways to make a skip, but as mentioned, I will tell you more about it later on. What are the key takeaways from that? By default, the ERP systems are not designed to give the extensive and deep insight into the IT spend analysis, into the categories. Of course, more and more of them are actually getting extensions that help you to categorize the spend according to TBM, because that's a growing standard on the market. However, this is like a totally different game, doing a full TBM versus starting with IT spend analysis and figuring out what actually you want to do. Where do you want to get? What do you need? So just to sum it up, doing the IT spend analysis will give you a tremendous advantage in decision making, driving the optimization efforts, and bringing value to the business itself, because you will be able to say exactly where you are spending, on what you are spending, whether it has grown or it has dropped over the year, like year to year. Later on, if you add the next layers like applications, services, capabilities, you are basically able to explain where the money flows, which is huge, huge, huge advantage. Thank you for listening. Leave a comment or like below, and also subscribe so the channel can grow. It will also give me a lot of encouragement to do the next things. If you have a question, drop it in the comment or send it via email. And see you in the next ones. Cheerios!